Have you ever noticed how some people seem to glide through life, no matter how stormy the circumstances are, while others get caught in every little gust of wind? The ones who complain when traffic is bad, who blame their boss when a project fails, who feel the world is always against them. And then there are those other people, the ones who seem calm, steady, and unshakable. They don't get rattled easily. They don't waste energy pointing fingers or making excuses. Instead, they look at themselves first. Mentally strong people understand a profound truth: life will always have challenges. There will always be moments when things don't go according to plan. The difference lies in how they respond. When faced with a setback, they don't ask, "Why me?" or "Who is at fault?" Instead, they ask, "What can I do?" They take responsibility for their thoughts, their actions, and their emotions. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man, ambitious and full of dreams, who worked in a big corporate company. One day, an important project he had been leading failed. He was devastated. He could have blamed the team, blamed the systems, blamed his manager, but he didn't. He sat quietly, reflecting on what went wrong and what part he could have played differently. And here's the amazing part: because he focused on what he could control, he learned from his mistakes. He adapted, improved his skills, and in a few years, he became one of the most respected leaders in the company. You see, blame keeps you stuck. Responsibility sets you free. When you take responsibility, you reclaim your power. Blaming others might feel satisfying for a moment. It might feel like justice, like finally pointing out someone else's mistake. But it comes at a cost. It keeps your mind tied to the past, trapped in resentment and frustration. Responsibility, on the other hand, shifts the focus from what happened to what can happen next. It changes you from a passive victim into an active creator of your life. Think about it in terms of a simple analogy. Imagine you are in a car, driving down a winding road. If you constantly blame the road for being bumpy, the trees for being too close, or the other drivers for being careless, you'll never reach your destination calmly. You will be tense, frustrated, and exhausted. But if you focus on what you can control, the way you steer, how you manage the brakes, how carefully you navigate, you reach your destination safely with confidence and peace. Life is very much like that road. You cannot control every situation or every person around you, but you can control how you respond. Mentally strong people also understand that taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself unnecessarily. It doesn't mean carrying guilt or shame for things outside your control. It means honestly acknowledging your role in a situation, no matter how small it might seem. It means looking at your life and saying, "What can I do to improve this?" Rather than, "Why is this happening to me?" This small shift in mindset is monumental. It transforms frustration into action, weakness into strength, and fear into courage. I want you to pause for a moment and reflect. How often do we give away our power by blaming circumstances or people for our situation? How many opportunities have we lost because we were too busy arguing with the world instead of looking within ourselves? Taking responsibility is like reclaiming the steering wheel of your life. It's a conscious choice to stop being a passenger in your own journey and start being the driver. There's a spiritual angle to this too. When we take responsibility for our thoughts, our words, and our actions, we align ourselves with the natural law of cause and effect. Life is not about punishment or reward, it's about consequences. Mentally strong people understand this. They know that if they sow seeds of effort, patience, and integrity, the harvest will come sooner or later. Blame may delay growth, but responsibility accelerates it. Finally, taking responsibility builds inner strength and self-respect. When you no longer blame others for your failures, you start to trust yourself more. You start to feel that even if things go wrong, you have the ability to face them, to fix them, and to grow from them. You stop waiting for the world to change, and you start changing yourself. And that, my friends, is the essence of mental strength. So today, I want you to ask yourself, in what areas of my life am I still blaming others? In what areas am I refusing to look in the mirror and acknowledge my role? It's uncomfortable, yes. It's humbling, yes. But it is also liberating, because the moment you take responsibility, you take back control. You step out of the role of a victim and into the role of a victor. And that is how mentally strong people think differently. They focus on what they can change, not on what they cannot. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to flow effortlessly through life, no matter how unpredictable or uncertain it becomes, while others struggle with the tiniest change? A sudden job transfer, a shift in routine, or even a small deviation from their plans can leave them anxious, frustrated, or even paralyzed. And yet, there are those remarkable people who see change not as a threat, but as an opportunity. They embrace it, they adapt, and somehow they thrive because of it. This is not luck, it is the mindset of mental strength. Mentally strong people understand a simple truth: the only constant in life is change. Life will never stay the same for long. Seasons change, circumstances change, relationships change, and even our own bodies and minds change. To resist change is to resist life itself, and that resistance creates tension, fear, and suffering. But when we learn to welcome change, we open ourselves to growth, opportunity, and resilience. Imagine a tree during the monsoon. The winds blow fiercely, the rains pour heavily, yet the tree bends gracefully, its roots deep and strong. If it resisted the wind, if it tried to stay rigid, it would snap. But because it bends, because it embraces the movement of life, it survives and even flourishes. That's exactly how mentally strong people respond to change. They bend, they adapt, they grow. Let me tell you a story. There was a young woman who had been working at the same company for years. She was comfortable, confident in her routine, and loved the stability of her life. Then, one day, she was asked to move to a completely new department in a different city to take on responsibilities she had never handled before. At first, fear gripped her. She worried about failing, about leaving her comfort zone, about starting over. But then she made a conscious choice. Instead of resisting, she embraced this change. She saw it as an opportunity to learn, to expand her skills, and to prove to herself what she was capable of. Years later, she looked back and realized that this moment of change had been the turning point of her career. It had propelled her to a place she could never have imagined if she had clung to her comfort zone. Change is inherently uncomfortable because it pushes us into the unknown. The unknown is unpredictable, and humans naturally fear unpredictability. But mentally strong people have a different perspective. They see unpredictability as a canvas of possibilities rather than a minefield of problems. They understand that the discomfort they feel is temporary, but the growth and lessons they gain are permanent. Every change, no matter how small, carries a seed of transformation. It may challenge them, it may test them, but it also teaches them resilience, creativity, and flexibility. Think about it in practical terms. If you are stuck in your comfort zone, your mind becomes rigid, your skills plateau, and your opportunities shrink. You may feel safe, but safety can be an illusion. The world around you keeps moving, evolving, and growing. Those who resist change get left behind, not because they lack talent, but because they refuse to adapt. Mentally strong people understand this and embrace the natural flow of life. They are like skilled surfers. They don't fight the waves, they ride them. Sometimes the wave is gentle, sometimes it's turbulent, but the surfer learns to adjust, balance, and glide forward, using the energy of the wave rather than opposing it. There's also a spiritual dimension to embracing change. Life, in its essence, is impermanent. Every joy, every sorrow, every challenge is transient. Mentally strong people cultivate awareness of this impermanence and let it guide their mindset. They know that clinging to what was or resisting what is creates suffering. Acceptance of change is not passive. It is a conscious choice to engage with life fully, without fear, without regret, without unnecessary resistance. By accepting change, they also develop patience, gratitude, and trust in their own abilities. Mentally strong people also know that change often brings unexpected blessings. A sudden shift may initially feel like a disruption, but in hindsight, it often turns out to be a blessing disguised as a challenge. A failed plan may redirect them toward a better opportunity. A lost job may push them to explore a passion they never had time for. A broken relationship may teach them about self, worth, compassion, and what truly matters. When we fear change, we miss these hidden gifts. When we embrace it, we discover treasures we never knew existed. Finally, embracing change builds courage. Every time you face something unfamiliar, every time you step into the unknown, you reinforce your belief in yourself. You remind yourself that no matter how unpredictable life gets, you have the inner strength to handle it. This courage becomes a habit, a mental muscle that grows stronger with every challenge. And once you cultivate this habit, fear of change diminishes, replaced by curiosity, flexibility, and a deep sense of inner peace. So today, I invite you to reflect. Where in your life are you resisting change? Where are you clinging to comfort at the cost of growth? Remember, mentally strong people do not fear change. They embrace it. They see it as an opportunity, a teacher, and a catalyst for transformation. They bend like the tree, ride the waves like the surfer, and dance with life in all its unpredictability. And in doing so, they live fully, fearlessly, and beautifully. Have you ever noticed how some people, when faced with a problem, immediately spiral into worry, anxiety, and frustration, while others seem calm, collected, and even creative in the same situation? The difference is not luck, intelligence, or resources, it's mindset. Mentally strong people have a remarkable ability to focus on solutions, not problems. They don't waste energy on endless complaints, regrets, or self-pity. Instead, they ask a simple but powerful question. What can I do about this? That question changes everything. It turns despair into action, fear into empowerment, and confusion into clarity. Let me give you an example. There was a young man working on a project that had suddenly hit a major obstacle. Everyone around him was panicking, pointing fingers, criticizing the circumstances, worrying about the outcome. Yet this young man sat quietly for a moment, took a deep breath, and asked himself, "What is within my control? What steps can I take right now?" He began to outline possible solutions, consulted people who had faced similar challenges, and took small, consistent actions every day. Within a short time, the problem that had seemed insurmountable began to unravel. The project was back on track, not because the problem magically disappeared, but because he focused on what he could do, not on what he couldn't. This is the essence of mental strength, the ability to shift focus from the obstacle to the path forward. Focusing on problems is easy. It's human nature. When something goes wrong, our minds instinctively dwell on what went wrong, who caused it, or why it happened. But mentally strong people understand that while problems are inevitable, dwelling on them is optional. Every minute spent ruminating on the problem is energy wasted, energy that could be directed towards solutions. Think of it like carrying a heavy backpack while climbing a mountain. Complaining about the weight doesn't make the climb easier. But adjusting the straps, distributing the load, and planning your steps makes all the difference. That's how solutions-oriented thinking works. It lightens the mental load and guides you forward. Mentally strong people also see problems as opportunities in disguise. Every challenge presents a chance to learn, grow, and innovate. For example, when a business faces a sudden drop in sales, a solutions-focused leader doesn't just blame the market or the team. They analyze, experiment, and innovate. They may discover a new strategy, a new product, or a better approach that could not have been imagined if things had gone smoothly. Problems, when approached with a solution mindset, are not roadblocks, they are stepping stones. They teach resilience, creativity, patience, and resourcefulness. Another important aspect is emotional regulation. When a problem arises, it can trigger fear, frustration, or anger. These emotions are natural, but if we dwell in them, they cloud judgment and block clarity. Mentally strong people acknowledge their emotions, feel them fully, and then redirect their focus to actionable steps. This is why they are able to remain calm and composed even under immense pressure. They don't let the weight of the problem paralyze them. They let it motivate them. They act rather than react. Let's think about relationships for a moment. Conflict is inevitable in any close relationship, whether with family, friends, or colleagues. A person who focuses only on the problem might dwell on past hurts, blame the other person, and escalate the conflict. But someone who focuses on solutions asks, "How can I improve this situation? How can I communicate better? How can we move forward together?" The difference is enormous. One approach creates resentment and stagnation. The other creates growth and harmony. Focusing on solutions transforms challenges into opportunities for connection and understanding. Mentally strong people also understand the power of perspective. Problems often appear larger and more threatening than they really are because we let our minds magnify them. By consciously shifting focus to solutions, we shrink the problem and expand our sense of agency. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we ask, "What can I do next?" This simple shift may seem small, but it has monumental consequences for how we experience life. It moves us from being victims of circumstances to being architects of our own lives. One more important insight is that solutions-oriented thinking is proactive, not reactive. It doesn't wait for the problem to magically disappear. It doesn't rely on luck, fate, or other people. It takes responsibility, examines options, and takes deliberate action. Even when the ideal solution is not immediately visible, mentally strong people take small steps that gradually lead them closer to resolution. They understand that progress, even incremental, is far better than stagnation. Finally, focusing on solutions builds confidence and resilience over time. Each challenge you overcome, each problem you solve, reinforces the belief that you can handle whatever life throws at you. It becomes a self-fulfilling cycle. The more you focus on solutions, the more capable you feel, and the stronger your mind becomes. You stop feeling overwhelmed by life's problems and start seeing them as invitations to grow, innovate, and rise above. So today, I want you to reflect in your own life. How often do you get stuck focusing on problems instead of solutions? How many hours, days, or even years have been lost worrying about things you cannot change? Mentally strong people know that the real power lies not in avoiding problems. They will always appear, but in how we respond. Shift your energy from the problem to the solution. Ask yourself, what can I do right now? What is the next step? Make this your habit, and you will find that no challenge is too big, no obstacle too daunting, and no setback too permanent. Mentally strong people don't just face challenges, they embrace them, learn from them, and transform them. They focus on what is possible, not on what is impossible. And that, my friends, is how they think differently and how they live a life of strength, purpose, and peace. Failure is a word that most of us fear. Just the thought of it can make our hearts race, our palms sweat, and our minds spin into a whirlwind of what ifs. But have you noticed that some people seem to embrace failure as if it were a faithful teacher rather than a cruel enemy? They don't let it define them. They don't let it crush their spirit. Instead, they see failure for what it truly is: a lesson, a stepping stone, a necessary part of growth. Mentally strong people understand this deeply. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the journey toward it. Let me share a story. There was a young man who dreamt of becoming an entrepreneur. He poured his heart and soul into a new business idea, invested his savings, and worked day and night. But after a year, the business failed. The bank accounts were empty, the clients gone, and his confidence shattered. Many would have seen this as the end, a personal defeat. But he chose a different path. Instead of lamenting the failure, he asked himself, what went wrong? What can I learn from this? He studied every mistake he made, every assumption he had taken for granted, and every decision that had led to the downfall. And then, armed with this knowledge, he started again. A few years later, he built a successful business, not because he avoided failure, but because he learned from it. This is the mindset of mental strength. Failure is not a permanent state, but a temporary teacher guiding us toward better choices, better strategies, and better selves. The reality is, failure is inevitable, life is unpredictable, and no matter how careful we are, setbacks will come. What mentally strong people do differently is that they do not run away from failure or pretend it doesn't exist. They accept it, acknowledge it, and examine it with curiosity and honesty. There is courage in this acceptance because it is far easier to blame circumstances, luck, or other people than to face the truth about one's own mistakes. But true growth begins when we look failure straight in the eye and ask, what is this trying to teach me? A failure also teaches humility. It reminds us that no one is infallible, no effort is perfect, and no outcome is guaranteed. Mentally strong people embrace this humility. They understand that mistakes are part of being human, and they use these moments to cultivate patience, resilience, and empathy. When we accept failure as a teacher rather than a punishment, we stop fearing it. We stop hiding from it. And we begin to grow in ways that comfort and success alone could never teach us. Another important lesson is that failure builds creativity and problem-solving skills. When a plan doesn't work, when an idea collapses, we are forced to think differently. We are pushed to innovate, to adapt, and to find solutions that we might never have imagined if everything had gone smoothly. In this sense, failure is not a dead end, it is a doorway. Mentally strong people walk through that doorway, curious and courageous, ready to explore new paths that lead to growth and achievement. Think about sports for a moment. A cricketer misses a crucial catch, a basketball player misses an important shot, or a runner loses a race. For those who are mentally weak, these moments become defining failures. They dwell on them, replaying them in their minds, letting guilt and regret dominate their thoughts. But mentally strong athletes use these experiences as fuel. They analyze what went wrong, practice harder, and return stronger. Failure is no longer an enemy, it becomes a coach, guiding them to excellence. The same principle applies to every area of life: career, relationships, personal goals. Every failure carries a lesson if we are willing to see it. Mentally strong people also understand the temporary nature of failure. Just because something doesn't work out today does not mean it will never work. Life is filled with cycles, second chances, and opportunities for redemption. Accepting failure as part of life allows us to move on with hope and determination, rather than being stuck in regret or shame. The sooner we accept failure as a natural part of growth, the sooner we can take action, learn, and move forward. There is also a spiritual perspective here. Life, in essence, is a series of lessons, and failure is one of the most important teachers. It humbles us, it redirects us, and it awakens us to our potential. Mentally strong people do not fear these lessons. They embrace them. They know that every failure carries wisdom, every setback carries insight, and every mistake carries a seed of future success. By accepting failure, they align themselves with the flow of life, learning to trust the process rather than demanding perfect outcomes. Finally, accepting failure cultivates resilience. Each time we face a setback and rise again, we strengthen our mind, our heart, and our spirit. We build the confidence to try again, knowing that even if we stumble, we will learn, adapt, and grow. This is why mentally strong people are unshakable. They do not see failure as the end, but as a natural and necessary part of their journey. They transform obstacles into lessons. disappointment into motivation, and struggle into wisdom. So today I want you to reflect in your own life. How do you respond to failure? Do you fear it, avoid it, or blame it? Or do you embrace it, learn from it, and grow because of it? Mentally strong people understand that failure is not a curse, it is a gift. It is a teacher, a guide, and a stepping stone toward a life of strength, purpose, and fulfillment. Accept it, learn from it, and watch how it transforms you into someone who is not only successful but truly wise. Have you ever noticed how some people remain calm, composed, and even joyful no matter what life throws at them, while others seem to be tossed around by every small storm of emotion? A rude comment, a traffic jam, a critical remark at work, or even a minor disagreement can send some people into frustration, anger, or despair. Yet there are those remarkable individuals who seem to handle everything with grace, patience, and balance. The secret is not that life is easier for them, it is that they have mastered the art of emotional regulation. They have learned to manage their emotions rather than let their emotions manage them. Mentally strong people understand a profound truth: emotions are powerful, but unchecked emotions can be destructive. When anger, fear, or sadness take control, they cloud our judgment, distort our perception, and often lead to decisions we later regret. Emotional regulation is not about suppressing feelings or pretending that everything is okay. It is about recognizing emotions as signals, understanding them, and responding to them wisely. It is the difference between reacting impulsively and responding thoughtfully. Let me share a story. There was a manager in a busy company who faced constant pressure from deadlines and demanding clients. One day, a colleague made a mistake that caused a significant problem. Many people in his position would have lost their temper, yelled, or blamed the colleague publicly. But this manager paused. He took a deep breath, acknowledged his initial frustration, and chose to respond with calmness. He asked questions to understand what had happened, guided his colleague through the solution, and focused on fixing the issue rather than assigning blame. Not only was the problem resolved efficiently, but his team also grew to respect him more, feeling safe and supported even under pressure. That is the power of emotional regulation. It transforms challenges into opportunities for leadership, growth, and positive influence. Mentally strong people also recognize that emotions are not permanent. They come and go like waves in the ocean. Just as the sea has storms, but also calm waters, our emotional landscape fluctuates. When we understand this, we stop identifying with every passing feeling. Anger, disappointment, or fear may rise, but we don't let them define us. Instead, we observe them, accept them, and decide how to act in alignment with our values and long-term goals. This awareness is a skill, one that mentally strong people consciously cultivate through reflection, mindfulness, and practice. Emotional regulation is especially crucial in relationships. How often do conflicts escalate simply because someone reacted impulsively to hurt, criticism, or misunderstanding? Mentally strong people understand that responding with immediate emotion can harm relationships, while responding with patience, empathy, and clarity can strengthen bonds. They practice listening deeply, pausing before speaking, and choosing words and actions that are constructive rather than destructive. Over time, this skill not only improves personal relationships, but also creates an aura of trust, respect, and stability that others are drawn to. Another key aspect is self-awareness. Mentally strong people invest time in understanding their own emotional triggers. They ask themselves questions like, what situations make me feel anxious or angry? Why do I react in certain ways? How can I respond more thoughtfully next time? By understanding themselves, they can anticipate challenges and regulate their reactions before emotions spiral out of control. This proactive approach sets them apart from those who live in reaction mode, constantly at the mercy of their feelings. Practicing emotional regulation also builds resilience. Life is unpredictable, and setbacks, criticism, and losses are inevitable. But when we can manage our emotions effectively, we are able to navigate adversity with clarity and purpose. We recover faster from disappointments, maintain focus under pressure, and act decisively even in difficult situations. This inner calm becomes a powerful source of strength, allowing us to respond rather than react, and to thrive even in turbulent times. There is also a deeper spiritual dimension to emotional regulation. Mentally strong people often recognize that our emotions are temporary and external events are beyond our full control. What is under our control is our response. They cultivate a mindset of equanimity, acknowledging the reality of challenges without letting them disturb their inner peace. Meditation, prayer, reflection, and mindful breathing are some of the tools they use to strengthen this skill. These practices help them create a mental space where emotions can be observed without being acted upon impulsively. Finally, emotional regulation leads to freedom. Think about it. When anger, fear, or anxiety drives our decisions, we are essentially enslaved by our own mind. But when we learn to regulate our emotions, we regain control of our life. We can choose our responses, align our actions with our values, and navigate life with intention rather than reaction. This is why mentally strong people are admired. They exude calm, clarity, and confidence even in chaos, because they have mastered the art of managing their inner world. So today, I invite you to reflect. How often do your emotions control your decisions, your relationships, or your peace of mind? How different would your life be if you could pause, observe, and respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively? Mentally strong people do not suppress their feelings. They understand them, manage them, and channel them into positive action. By practicing emotional regulation, we not only strengthen our mind, but also cultivate inner peace, resilience, and the power to live life fully, regardless of what comes our way.